She found out she was wrong the hard way. Sometimes there's only a fine line between zeal and arrogance. What is the worst business decision you've ever seen? Property management company I used to work for had a number of student properties and high-rises that were always a struggle to fill in the summer months when students went out of town. Head office came up with an offer that anyone who signed for 2 years got the 4 summer months at 50% off. Sounds like a good deal. 50% rent is much better than zero. We signed tons of students. However, the lease templates that head office sent over showed the reduced rent rate on the lease rather than just adding the discount as a separate addendum. I noticed this discrepancy and reported it, and was subsequently ignored, which meant the students were signing a legal document that guaranteed them 50% rent for 2 years. The company lost hundreds of thousands in revenue. 2 members of the band Steppenwolf wanted to break away from founder John Kay and wanted to tour using the band name. John Kay told them he would allow it, only if they signed over their royalties from the songwriting credits they had in the band. These 2 members were convinced they would be successful on their own, so they agreed. Since Steppenwolf without John Kay would be like the Rolling Stones without Mick Jagger, that version of the band flopped tremendously. Also, even a 5-year-old could tell you that giving up your royalties on major hits like Born to Be Wild and Magic Carpet Ride would be a really stupid thing to do. So these guys ended up having to work regular menial jobs when they could have been getting a nice royalty check in the mail instead. I worked for a design/printing place for years, and the owner went from amazing idea to stupid idea on a regular basis. Don't get me wrong. Guy is a brilliant designer, totally took advantage of new tech every chance he could and made it work. But he was cheap and greedy, so ruined what would have been lucrative long-term business relationships. So we did this huge order of promo supplies for a fairly big online casino. Huge for him. About a 20K order, with good margins, and the chance at long-term work with this company. While it was being picked up, on the spur of the moment, he decides to pad the bill by about $200. The guy picking it up was the son of the casino owner, and literally watched the boss do this while I stood at the till. The customer looks at me, smiles, and pays the bill, with a huge wad of cash, and says, "I know it's not your fault, but my family is very wealthy. We didn't get that way letting people rip us off. Tell the boss over in the corner he just F himself out of a lot of money, because we love the work." In a voice meant to carry. Added to clarify who was paying. And padding means he increased the bill over what he had quoted the job to cost. Knew this guy who wanted to start his own barbecue and hot sauce line. Here was his process. 1. Get high with buddy and make the decision go into business together. 2. Argue about who should be financing the business. 3. Get a loan from grandma. 4. Order a bunch of bottles. 5. Use a Sharpie and some blank labels to put on the bottle. 6. Fill the bottles with bulk barbecue sauce. 7. Try and sell these to Walmart. 8. Get upset that Walmart won't shelve your sketch sauces. 9. Have several hundred bottles of unsealed product that wasn't prepared hygienically. 10. Try and sell some to your extended family. 11. Get angry with extended family that they don't believe in your dreams of the last 2 weeks. 12. Beg family for money to pay back grandma. My late great-uncle started a fish and chips restaurant. He had his own unique recipe for the fish and it was very popular. Businessmen had offered him thousands in cash for it over the years, but he always declined. After about 40 or so years, he decided to retire and hand the business over to an ambitious recent college graduate. He offered to give her the recipe and even volunteer his services for a bit while she got comfortable in her new role as owner. She declined both and within a year, she was forced to sell the restaurant after coming close to declaring bankruptcy. My great uncle died and took the recipe with him to his grave. Did she? Did she not research the business before buying it? She was apparently under the impression that her own recipe was better. She found out she was wrong the hard way. Sometimes there's only a fine line between zeal and arrogance. In my hometown there was an independent fast food and homemade ice cream place, long established and run by close friends. It was a goldmine. They decided to sell and retire. New owners immediately changed everything. Painted it a wild color, removed some attractions on the grounds, changed the 60-year-old menu and switched to commercially made ice cream. They lasted 8 months. I'll never understand someone who buys a road-tested, successful business and says to themselves, you know what this needs to be? Completely fucking different. And proceeds to change stuff, especially the menu. Like, someone else already did the hard work of building a profitable brand and product. That's what you paid for. Not the building, the reputation and the food. This one involves my dad. Back in the 80s he decided he wanted to teach people how to use Lotus 123, Excel, MS Word, etc. So he bought a bunch of computers for a classroom, and he wrote interactive learning programs, and printed out manuals and such. Even without advertising, he had people asking to join his class, but he was never quite ready. This Lotus 123 program could use more work. He wasn't ready for a class. This MS Word tutorial isn't quite done. The perfectionist in him wouldn't let him expose the less than perfect programs/class to people just yet. He turned down paying customers for fear that it wasn't just perfect. He had taken a loan out from a friend to finance this, but never made a dime. He paid the loan back by selling our cottage, something he regrets to this day. And why? Because he was afraid to be flawed. That taught me a lesson though. As the old saying goes, perfect is the enemy of done. He could easily have made money and taught his classes, refining the programs to student feedback. He could have covered deficiencies by teaching in person. He was afraid it wasn't perfect, so it was never done. We don't talk about it, or the cottage that we built together. We had the foundation and structure built by pros. Then the whole family pitched in to build the interior when we were teens. It saddens me more because it was what he wanted to do, and he went for it, but not quite. I worked for a video store during the time Finding Nemo came out on DVD. The video store I worked for got a huge fish tank put inside. It was so big they had to shrink the game rental section. The tank had clownfish in it. The tank was also locked and we couldn't feed the fish or clean it. This was supposed to be done by someone who I never saw come in. So the tank ended up filled with a bunch of dead Nemos in a nasty as fuck tank. Needless to say, parents were very unhappy about it. The local paper did a small article about it too, which didn't help an already dying store. I have no idea what they thought an expensive as hell fish tank would do for their business. I call this the 95% method of failing at business. You do everything you need to do, coming up with ideas, securing funding, contacting suppliers, hiring help. Then, when everything is nearing completion, you drop the freaking ball hard. This is very common. One place I worked at did this to just about everything. Pay 7 figures to get a piece of equipment ordered, all the peripherals and everything in hand, ready to go. Then, save a few thousand by DIYing the installation and duct taping the problems for the next few years until it dies, and the company you ordered it from won't help cause they voided the warranty with the DIY work. A chicken wing place where I lived had a 1.5 year long promotion where they would send out free 6-piece boneless wing meal coupons with no additional purchase necessary. They included them in every local mailer pack. I would receive 4 or 5 a month, every month, for over a year. And they had 99-cent pints of craft beer. But if you filled out a survey on the receipt, you got another beer for free. And they would let you fill out a survey for every beer you purchased. I would get lunch and 2 pints for $1.07 after tax. I did this every week for over a year. When they ended the promotion, I never went back for food because I was so burnt out on free chicken and fries. We still stop there every once in a while for a cheap pint when riding bikes past the place. But in the 50+ meals I've had there, I've probably only spent about $75 on beer, and probably had over 100 pints. A mall near me is probably 50% empty, or at least close to it. Honestly, half the traffic in the mall comes from an attached but separately owned sporting goods store. There used to be 3 big department stores on 3 of the ends of the mall, but now only one is left. They built a new food court, but the rent cost was so high that, even though when it opened all 6 spaces were full, there's now only one and it's fairly new. Even though they were losing stores before COVID, the owners evicted 3 stores that have been there for at least 15 years because they were behind on rent during COVID, which, while not wrong, did not do anything to save their failing image. And the biggest idiocy of all is that, about 5 or 6 years ago, when stores started leaving the mall, they decided to implement a new policy for their renters. Every time a store left the mall, the rent was evenly divided amongst the rest of the tenants. The mall is shaped like a big X, and most of the stores in the very middle are closed now. Wow! Dividing rent between the stores is idiotic. That's a guaranteed way to lose more stores, lose foot traffic because there are less stores, and lose even more stores. A friend of my husband's owns a sports bar. A few months ago he offered $1 beers. The place quickly became overloaded with homeless people and the regulars didn't like it and stopped going. Special didn't last long. There's a business concept of market pricing. How you price will affect the crowd that buys it and the perception of quality. $1 beer is honestly not that bad if it was a campus bar, or at a happy hour if it was beside a bunch of offices. It's the reason that people pay more and businesses willingly sell less product. You're paying for a comfortable, clean, not crowded place to socialize with a beer. Insert Yahoo bad business decisions. 1998, Yahoo refuses to buy Google for $1 million. 2004, Yahoo tries to buy Google for $3 billion. Google asks for $5 billion. Yahoo refuses again. 2008, Yahoo turns down an acquisition offer from Microsoft for $40 billion. 2016, Yahoo sold to Verizon for $4.6 billion. A developer my dad worked with sold off a beautiful piece of land next to a river in a very desirable area. He sold it to another developer. The new developer cut down every tree on the 6-acre site. As he said, he wanted to see what he had. The land then started to slide into the river, rendering it worthless and ugly. When we first moved to the small town we're in, there was a sort of cafe thing that had the best donuts. I mean the best in probably 100 miles. Those folks turned out to be leasing the business or something that changed and it reverted back to the actual owners, who quit making the donuts, even though it was their actual recipe. I asked them about it when I went in to buy some and they said they couldn't be bothered to get up early enough in the morning. As politely as I could, I said, "You should hire somebody to do it if you don't want to because they are by far the best thing on your menu. There's other joints around here to get a burger, including much cheaper chains, but nobody has anything like those donuts." They didn't. Then went out of business in a couple of months. I know you learned something today. Give me something in return. Like the video. Thanks for watching my dearies. Subscribe please. See ya.